Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today we are going to continue our coverage of the civil war taking place inside the former state of Ethiopia. I thought it prudent to restart coverage of what is occurring. We are now seeing open rebellion in the Amhara region of the former state of Ethiopia. So we have continued fighting taking place in Oromia. The fighting, for all intents and purposes, has settled down inside of Tigray. That could recommence. Obviously, the Tigrayan Defense Forces still exist. And then finally, the Fano, F-A-N-O, the paramilitary organization that supported Abiy Ahmed in his military war against the Tigrayan Defense Forces. And now we are seeing Fano rebel against Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed wants to be the only person with absolute power in the former state of Ethiopia. Now, he's getting pushback, obviously. And this is a country of over 100 million people. It is a multi-ethnic, multi-linguistic nation state that has fragmented, obviously. And if you look at the demographics in terms of the population breakdown, Oromos make up about 34% of the country. Amharans make up about 26%. Somalis make up about 6%. Tigrayans make up about 6%. Sidamas make up about 4%. Garaj make up about 2.5%. And then obviously there are Afars, Gamos, Hadiyas, and various other ethnic groups in this former nation state that has fragmented. Now, the Amharas had traditionally been a very large power base inside of Ethiopia. And traditionally, at least in the near term, specifically with Abiy Ahmed in power, the Amharas have supported, or traditionally, tacitly, directly, overtly supported Abiy Ahmed. Now, obviously, that is changing. And now we are seeing thousands, possibly tens of thousands, of Fano fighters take up arms against the Abiy Ahmed regime and against the Abiy loyalist forces, which are made up of Oromo, Amharas, and other ethnic groups in that force structure. So you have civil wars within civil wars. Very, very complex situation that is becoming even more complex. Before the last couple of months, obviously you could see that it was the Abiy loyalist forces made up of largely Amharans, Abiy Ahmed supporting Oromos, engaged in a war of essentially conquest against the Tigrayan Defense Forces. Now, that conflict has since died down, where the Tigrayan Defense Forces appear in the northern sector of the country, annotated in green. Were they militarily defeated? No, they weren't. That's why this area is still in green, because the Tigrayan Defense Forces still exist. Now, what we have now in the area of gray is the Amhara region, which is now in rebellion. Is it going to be successful? Well, it's difficult to say. It's difficult to say how this will end, and will it inflame itself? What will happen to the Abiy loyalist forces, also known as the Ethiopian Defense Forces? Again, a multi-ethnic, multilinguistic armed forces that has the potential of fragmenting. Remember, in the early days of the Abiy Ahmed Tigray War, large portions of the ENDF, the Ethiopian National Defense Forces Northern Command, was made up of Tigrayans. Those forces, those individuals, fragmented from the Ethiopian National Defense Forces and merged and joined with the local Tigrayan Defense Forces. Now, the infrastructure to commence a very robust rebellion against Abiy Ahmed was present in Tigray. Tigray essentially had its own armed forces in which it was very rapidly able to seize control and merge components of the ENDF, the Abiy Loyalist Forces, Ethiopian National Defense Forces, whatever you want to call them, into the Tigray Defense Forces. Now, it's a little different in the Amhara region. Fano does not possess a lot of heavy weapons. They are mostly a paramilitary organization that augments the Abiy Loyalist forces when it was attacking the Tigray region. They do not have the logistical capacity, and again, they do not have the tanks, armored vehicles, heavy artillery, light artillery that the Tigrayan Defense Forces had possessed at the time of that war kicking off. Furthermore, Abiy Loyalist forces are continuing to receive large amounts of aid from the United Arab Emirates. The Abiy Loyalist forces and the Loyalist Air Force and intelligence apparatus possess Chinese, Iranian, and Turkish drones. The Fano organization does not have any ability to engage those drones. It doesn't exist. The Abiy Loyalist forces have very recently secured major cities: Bahir Dar, Gondar, Desai, Kombolcha. And they secured these areas because of the air bases. They are able to move their drones around to forward operating bases, especially in Bahir Dar. That is a key Air Force base for Abiy Loyalist forces. And it's going to be very difficult for Fano to continue to operate, be it outside of operating in the hills and high country of the Amhara region. But movement in columns, along roads, in trucks, and other vehicles is going to be very difficult for the Fano fighters because of that drone capability. And the Abiy Loyalist forces have that capability. It's not so much the heavy weapons, the tanks, the armored fighting vehicles, the artillery. That could be fought against with masses of Amharan fighters. But drones prowling the skies at night, launching thermobaric munitions, can drain and sap morale very quickly. They have the ability to hit command and control points, known areas where Fano leaders are operating. Furthermore, Abiy Ahmed has access to cash. And cash is probably more powerful in this conflict than actual weapons. The ability to bribe and compromise opposing forces with cash is prevalent in these conflicts. I believe one of the reasons that we see the status quo in Tigray was because of cash. Not military capacity, bribery. Now I'm going to get some pushback on that, and I understand that, and that's fine. But it happens. And I believe it did happen. And ultimately, this war, unless the Abiy loyalist army fragments along ethnic lines, and we see a collapse of that force, and Abiy Ahmed is left with his Republican Guard, elements of his federal police forces, and intelligence apparatus. Now, obviously, that could change things. But right now, going to be very difficult for the Fano organization, the Fano paramilitaries, to achieve military success with the conditions that are present on the ground. Again, drones, that capability, foreign assistance, and then again, cash. But we'll wait and see. We'll see what happens. We'll continue to monitor, and we will continue to report. Have a good day.